Everybody's good?
Good evening and welcome to the August 14th meeting of the Planning Policy Commission. Thank you all for being here. As usual, we do the minutes first. Has everybody read the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? A second? Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Great.
Here we go. Tonight we're going to continue the cultural plan of the growth management, and we're going to just start with you and the economic vitality part of the cultural element.
Yes, absolutely. You got it in one. Very good. Quick housekeeping for you and for our TV audience. Our October 9th meeting is getting bumped up to October 2nd. I'll send you all an email out so that you can change your schedules, but I just wanted to sort of plant the seed that October is going to be a little different for us because the council uses the chambers for their budget deliberations quite often in the month, during the month of October, and so there's 2 Thursdays that they're using our chambers, so we have to bump one of our meetings. So I'm just giving you a heads up that we'll be meeting October 2nd, and you'll see more about it in an email, so I just wanted to plant the seed. But for more important and exciting news tonight, we're continuing on with the comprehensive plan update. This is exciting. Tonight we have 2 topics. We have the economic vitality element, which we have someone from Economic Development Department, Jen, here with us tonight to walk us through all the work that the commission has been doing with our very own Bill Ramos is also on that commission. So we'll have 2 helps to get us to understand all the work that they've been doing, and they've been doing a lot of work. And I will help us understand what the Arts Commission has been doing with the cultural element, and Joan will help me as she is on the Arts Commission as well. So we have a lot of help tonight to understand these 2 very important elements and to understand how the goals came about and how we can keep them and enforce them in our comprehensive plan. Just to remind all of us, including myself, because sometimes I have trouble with what the difference is, the goal is the aim or the desired result, and the policy is the principle on how to get us there, and the implementation is actually how to carry it out. And sometimes they get a little mixed, and that's okay, but it's always good to try to remember how we're supposed to divide them out. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jen for the economic vitality element. Oh, very good. You might have noticed in your packet that the economic vitality element looked a little different than the others that we've sent you because it had a long list of implementation. And that is because they have been working very hard on a lot of the planning that they're doing. But it's the first one that you've seen that has a lot of implementation tied to it, which sort of threw us a little bit because we had thought about working on the implementation later on for all the elements and keeping it as sort of a report card, not as officially adopting it for the state and sending it to the state and getting approved by the state and being limited by the state review process, but keeping it as sort of a live document where we can check things off and change things around, and we aren't stuck in, if you will, the limitations of the state GMA. And so it's not in the presentation tonight, but it's still in your packet just to let you know what that kind of a plan or a report card is going to look like for us so that we can be implementing the policies and programs, but it won't be actually a part of the GMA plan. So if you got to the end of Jen's presentation and said, where's the implementation discussion? You can still ask her about it, but it wouldn't actually be caught in the goals or the policies. Does that make sense? And we can talk about it more at the end if you still have questions or if something triggers. And it's just the arrows.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, good evening. My name is Jen Davis-Hayes, and I work as an economic development manager here at the City of Issaquah. And as you know, the City of Issaquah has a relatively new economic development department. And so luckily, we actually have been working on, with our Economic Vitality Commission, a strategic plan. And so it was perfect timing to then also utilize that information for the comp plan. And so that's why we had so much more information already done, because we've been working with the EVC for about a year plus. Before I started last September, they did a SWOT analysis of what things in the city were opportunities and what things they needed to address more. And then we worked more on goals and policies and moving forward with implementation. So So it was a nice to dovetail right into the comp plan work. And so as you, right here, it talks about these are the things that are required by the GMA. So we need a summary of the local economy, so that's going to be a lot of the data. So we don't have that yet. We're working on that, we're gathering all of that data. And then a summary of the strengths and weaknesses of the local economy. And I believe, again, because we did that SWOT, we have some of that information in here already. And then the policies, programs, and projects to foster economic growth and development to address future needs. So again, we have worked towards that, and we'll address those things. So why is economic vitality important? Well, it definitely, as you know, it is a quality of life issue, right? And so as Bill knows, we talked a lot about this in the Economic Vitality Commission about what does that mean? You know, economic vitality doesn't just mean economic development in the economy. It means the quality of life, the amenities, the education, the outdoor recreation opportunities, workforce development, housing, all those elements. But we realize that this element is going to be mostly dealing with businesses, and so we talk really about the innovative and vibrant business community we have here in Issaquah, and we want to continue to have, and making sure that we have a diverse business and residential population here, because as we grow as a city, we want to make sure that we can accommodate our population, along with all of our natural assets. And you can, if you have any questions, just jump on in. We look forward to your questions and comments. So looking at our vision, we actually had a really hard time with creating one vision for our statement for our strategic plan. And so luckily, we didn't have to have one really short vision here for this comp plan. So I took advantage of that and talked about how we want to continue to have a welcoming business climate and making sure that our businesses are successful here in our community. We also want to make sure that, again, that we're looking at the diversity of job opportunities. So not everybody can work at Costco or work at Microsoft, but we have a gamut of opportunities across the line in small businesses and large businesses, and offer goods and services to our residents. And then we also want to make sure that we as the city are providing the infrastructure and the tools that the businesses need to be successful, so that our school district is investing in and working side by side with businesses to best educate our children and to make sure that we protect the natural environment, because that's very important to us here in Issaquah. So our first goal is to have a successful business environment. And so what that really means is that we are providing, we're working with businesses to provide them assistance at the level they need, making sure they are connected with resources in the community. We're looking to make sure we have transportation and mobility solutions, because obviously if they can't get goods and services in, or their workers in, or having issues with that, they're going to go someplace else. One of the things that my coworker is working on right now is looking at with the utilities and looking at power and trying to make sure that there's a quality of electricity provided where you are able to do what you need to do. So some businesses have had fluctuation in power and how that has affected their business, and making sure that we try to address that. And then we want to make sure, of course, that we can continually communicate with our business and community stakeholders to make sure that we are addressing the current trends, because things do change quickly in this economy, as we've seen in the last several years.
I just have a...
Yeah.
Issaquah strives to be a business-friendly community. That's not really a goal. Issaquah will be a business-friendly community, should be.
Okay. That's a good.
How about Issaquah is?
Right.
Either. It needs to have more than strives.
It's what is or will be. Okay. Thank you. That's the wordsmithing I think we did 1,000 times over. And then one of the things that when I was first hired about a year ago was to really, we know that Issaquah is a great place to live, but a lot of people don't think about coming and locating their business here in Issaquah. To a lot of people, they may not know of the assets beyond the amenities living here. And so what we really have strived to do is to really, we're working on trying to identify our niche in the business world. So what type of businesses will be best successful here in Issaquah because of our location and our amenities, and how then we can tell that story out to the broader business community. And in part in doing that is building our regional partnerships. So making sure we're at the table with our Economic Development Council of Seattle-King County, making sure we're at the regional real estate brokers meetings and telling our story about Issaquah. We actually created some initial marketing material about Issaquah to tell people the story about and tell them about the different businesses that are here and how you can have a great balance of work life here. And so again, part of it is just going out there and telling them what we already know. And then we're looking to encourage private investment, and mostly we'll be working on the central Issaquah area and trying to encourage redevelopment of that area. And so again, telling that story about how what you see now is not what our future vision is for that area. We want to see high density and mixed use development there.
So I apologize for going back a little bit,
You
but
can.
going back to goal A,
Yes.
you had talked about agility in the processes, the ability to tailor to changes in trends, and that's something that I'm not actually seeing either within the goal or within the policies under the goal. Is that something that can be added there?
So for goal A,
Yeah.
Okay.
For goal A. So you had talked about the agility, but I don't actually see it within the
Okay.
policies.
okay. Change business. Thank you. Okay. Anything for goal B right now? Any thoughts, comments? Okay. And then goal C is workforce development and housing. And we all know that we have an amazing school district and a school foundation that work really hard to make sure we have the best quality of education. And one of the things we will have soon is a Bellevue College campus. And so making sure we make those connections between those institutions and the businesses who need workers with those skills. And so right now, businesses may not be aware of all the resources that are available to them in that system. And it's quite the system. We actually have worked with the Workforce Development Council, which is a regional, Seattle-King County regional organization, and they helped us with our Issaquah Job Fair. We did a youth job fair that was in May. And so we're looking at ways, again, to try to connect businesses with the skilled workers and making sure that, again, as skills change and as our residents change, making sure that we have the opportunity for that. And one of the things that the Economic Vitality Commission thought was really important is making sure that there were housing options for folks that that work in the community. So if you worked at Microsoft or Costco, or if you worked at the Target or 12th Avenue Cafe, that you had an opportunity to live in the community if you chose to do so. And so with that, we'll be looking at working with DSD on a workforce housing plan, and moving forward to look at if there's other affordable housing opportunities to address that. And especially with the Central Issaquah plan, if we get some development there and some affordable housing here, that would be nice.
Just
Yes.
a minor
Yes.
improvement.
Yeah.
The business community employs readily available skilled and educated workers. Can that be massaged a little bit so I don't understand it.
Sure.
I mean, do we provide, should it be stated a different way? We work to, I don't know, but it just doesn't sound that the community employs readily available, skilled and educated workers. How do we do that? I mean, do we take the second part, which is training,
Right.
and that's really where
Starts.
you need to be instead of you employ these people. Your goal is to provide access, and does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. So maybe the city works with businesses within its communities to provide skilled and educated workers and residents, and provides continued training for a changing economy.
I look at the housing option to be almost a goal of itself. I think it's, the first part was enough, and then housing should be put someplace else.
Yeah, we had that exact discussion in the EVC about whether or not housing goes here, and they decided that they wanted to have it at a higher level with a goal level versus under someplace else.
Well, I
because
think
the importance.
it's important.
It's important,
Realtor,
yeah.
I think it's really
Yeah,
important.
and so maybe we can look at the element the comprehensive plan as a whole to see if it's addressed. And I know that housing is an element. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. Trish, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing I don't see in the goals or in the implementation is public school education from preschool through grade 12. I think one of our goals should be that we maintain what now is one of the finest school systems anywhere.
Right.
I think it's very important from a business standpoint, attracting businesses, attracting
Exactly.
high-level workers, that
Yep.
our educational programs from preschool through 12th grade are unparalleled.
I agree, and you're right. A lot of people, when they, business owners, when they come to look at an area, the first thing they will do is look at the school district and how good the schools are, because they want their employees to feel like they can move there. And so actually, this goal will address that in working with the school district and the school foundation. And the way we worded it here is that to help integrate them with the business community and help make those connections a little better.
I don't see the emphasis that maybe we ought to place on that.
Okay.
And I do echo Ray's concern that, assisting the school district is one thing, but on the other hand, it's really the school district being at that higher level that also attracts the workers. So maintaining that is kind of the front end of bringing the business here as opposed to integrating it with the business.
Anybody else?
One last thing, if you please. Does anybody think it's important to mention when we talk about housing options, how do we get people to work? Transportation issues. Where does that,
It's in
where is
there.
that mentioned in here about
Well,
some type of municipal transportation?
That would be in our first goal. So we're looking at developing transportation and mobility
Okay.
solutions. Yeah.
Well, something that we should emphasize.
Right. Right. And luckily, we do have a transportation element as well? Because that is something that actually my coworker works a lot with our transportation department, our public works, to make sure that we're all pushing towards the same direction.
Okay.
So, and we do a really good job at that here at the city. Okay. Any other comments?
One
Yeah.
last one back on C. I guess the last sentence where we're looking at housing options will be available for current and future business to make Issaquah home.
Oh,
I think we need business employees or something
yes.
in there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So then our last one goal we call vibrant community, and this really is getting to the quality of life issues. And so talking about the arts and culture, our outdoor recreation amenities, looking at making sure we have a diverse selection of entertainment, dining, and shopping needs. So that addresses the current residents, but also the visitors and the tourists who will be coming into our area. And so this is the section again that kind of makes sure that all the amenities that businesses and residents look for, we support with that. With, of course, lots of other partners to do this. So this isn't, the only economic development doing these things, but we understand how important it is to be part of that.
I think one thing that to emphasize in the policies there is also, and I don't see it there, is the community events.
The
I don't know if
community
that can fit into cultural opportunities, but it seems a little bit different. I mean, I know when I told some people I was moving to Issaquah, they said, "Oh, it's Salmon Days," so that's kind
Yeah.
of what Issaquah is known for, and I'm sure it brings a lot of economic development into the city just through Salmon Days. So I think it almost should be a separate policy because there are so many community events that it should just be, we should support and encourage cultural event or community events.
Right, and I'm looking at our implementation because I think you're exactly right. That's one of the ways we see actually growing opportunities for businesses as well, and awareness about what's happening here in Issaquah. Because as Roger Brooks, our tourism consultant, says, that everybody's first a visitor to your community, right? So if they come for Salmon Days or for a run or for whatever, a hike, they're always that visitor at first, and then they start to think, oh, maybe this is a place to live and do business.
The other thing that I didn't see that maybe is there or buried where I didn't see it is safety and security as a critical element in economic development. We need to emphasize that we are a safe and secure and crime-free community.
Sure, right. That's very true. We've been lucky about that. Any other comments about Goal D?
Thank you.
I think you guys were good about asking good questions and suggesting things
I think
along the way.
we've, asked the questions that we were concerned about, so nothing else that you want to add? I know we have a little bit more information than what you put up on,
Right.
and I think it covers what you said pretty well, the different ideas and options. And it also flows along with the arts
Yes,
part of it.
yes.
Because people come to Issaquah, businesses come, but they want their
Mhm.
employees to have cultural and, not only good schools, but good events and good music and
Right.
everything else, so they want to stay here. So
Yeah, and that's one of our
All works
emphasis,
together.
increasing those opportunities so you don't have to go into Seattle or Bellevue. And so, there's a lot right here.
So it's not
That gets
just-
through the events, too.
And it's not just affordable housing for employees, it's affordable housing for other people who want to live in Issaquah. So
Oh, yes, yes. And again, it's housing options, right? So you have full scale.
options are good.
Yes.
Options are good.
Yes, so.
John, are you talking about a human services element as an additional factor?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Are you talking a human services element as a critical factor as well?
I think it all goes together. I think
Yeah.
art and human services and the right housing and safety and
agree.
security.
I just
mean,
wanted to bring
we
that
have
out, that
I
human
think you look
services
at
is
all the-
also a critical element.
Yeah, everything is.
Right, right. And they're all connected,
They're all
that's-
connected, and I think that each one of the sections of the plan covers some part of it, but it all has to go together.
Right, and that's Trish's job, I guess.
Good
Okay.
segue.
Well, thank you very much.
You're going to let Jen go? That's it?
Yes, that's
All right,
it.
that was easy.
Got it.
Thank you very much for having us here, and we'll see you again in October with some updates.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well now the cultural element, which has no GMA requirements, which didn't bother Issaquah at all because we chose to have an element anyway. Like we had an economic vitality element before it was required. We also had the human services element before it was required. So we've sort of been on the leading edge for a long time with how we feel about the community. And this is one example. If you have questions about this, as I said, Joan is on the Arts Commission, and she and the Arts Commission have discussed all of these topics, so she'll be able to help us dig down into some of these if we don't completely understand where they're coming from. We all know why the cultural events and pieces and parts of our community are important. Part of it's the sense of place that we get from our history and from what we're doing now and the people that have come before us and the pioneers and the governor even, and it's just, we have a lot of resources here that are cultural and artistic, and we wanted to capture that in this very short but very important element. The vision is to use those arts and culture that we have to enrich our quality of life. We recognize that art comes from a lot of different venues, a lot of different ways that we can foster that culturally rich and diverse community, from people to places to events to, the whole gamut of things. And we try to capture that here to make sure we don't lose anything. The first one is cultural vitality, to support all the opportunities that can strengthen what we have and what we're going to have and what we hope to have. We talk about community involvement is big, maintaining and having a diversity of public art through a lot of it's through the arts program, the Arts Commission, and encouraging festivals and events that Paul mentioned, that to get all the people to the events and to sort of have that community feeling around something as exciting as the salmon coming home. That's the first one. Any questions on the first?
So I know I've read this, but it seemed shorter when I read it than when you put it up on screen.
Did I add?
So we have three different things in there, and maybe it should just be support opportunities that strengthens the cultural vitality, and then the other ones will be more specific underneath as
Oh,
ways
okay.
to do
The
that.
Promoting and providing, okay. Because the
Unless
first,
somebody else has some,
I've got a slight quarrel with one of the words. We use public art. I think it should be public arts programs, because art is more than it's more than statues and artwork, it's all of the arts, and I think that's what needs to be emphasized.
Okay. Okay, I think that's what we were getting at, but is that, it was all
The
encompassing?
art program encompassed everything, but if you feel that it needs to be more specific, then we'll certainly consider it.
Yeah, I do
Growing a
agree.
diverse public art program, I think growing diverse arts programs is what I'd like to see.
Oh, without the public?
So art itself tends to lend itself to just thinking of a painting, whereas arts encompasses all the arts, I think is what Ray's saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And keeping public, though?
Maybe public and
Private, I think.
private.
So I think just arts, removing
Because
public.
many of the businesses that we're encouraging are arts-based.
Okay. How does that ring with the?
We've had this discussion for years about getting businesses involved in putting art in their buildings, and I mean, that's kind of what we looked at when we said public art program, was to integrate with businesses, since this is an cultural program. So it's there, but we can change anything you want.
Can we say something about the public arts program and how you reach out to private entities where their businesses, or to try and get it everywhere?
Just public and private art program.
Okay.
Does it emphasize that further on in art and
Yes.
community design?
Yeah, it does.
That's all it says.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Under policy A1, while I agree the promoting patronage is important, I'm not seeing anything about preserving the artistic, cultural, and historical programs and venues. So proposed wording, I think, would be promote and preserve Issaquah's artistic, cultural, and historical programs and venues to provide cultural opportunities to residents and visitors.
That is said in the last section.
The last section was written by the Historical Society, so that kind of encompasses
Oh.
that.
And I apologize.
Physical
Yeah.
heritage?
We move forward with the section.
Oh, okay,
I don't like the last.
okay,
That is more.
okay.
I definitely agree. It's one of the reasons I moved here.
As I grow more older.
No, we're not getting older. No, we're not getting older. It's all state of mind.
And how far ahead would you move it to?
Why don't we get to it?
Okay.
And then we'll decide where to move it.
Okay. Can we move to B, or we still have questions and comments on A? Okay, going once. B is very short. Preserve and enhance the natural and physical environments that reflect Issaquah's unique sense of place. And this talks about incorporating public art in city capital improvement projects, studying possible new incentives for developers to increase integration of art into private buildings, promoting public art in parks, urban trails, public spaces, community infrastructure, and providing opportunities for artists and design professionals' involvement in review in early design phases of community facilities. Questions or comments on that one?
Any additions?
I'm thinking in terms of promoting and encouraging the maintenance of the history and I'm trying to find the words to express it, but what is Issaquah? And all of downtown Issaquah is an example, but to encourage in architecture and everything else, maintaining that feel, that culture that makes us unique.
That's again, though, in that last,
Is that the last?
in the historic resource protection, it's kind of spelled out in that.
No, I'm thinking beyond that. I'm thinking in terms of, excuse me, I'm thinking in terms of development, in terms of architecture, in terms of, we've got a long-term plan, and I'd like to see the architectural standards encouraging what is Issaquah, rather than just seeing vertical factories, vertical warehouses, or whatever you want to call these nondescript glass buildings that really have no real identity and no real culture.
I agree with you, but I don't think those remarks are something in these two sections that we're discussing. I mean, they go back to more of a development type.
Turn your,
Turn your microphone up.
Oh. Did anybody not hear what I said? I think what you're referring to goes more to a development type approach to.
I think it's a goal in terms of preservation of the identity of Issaquah.
I agree with you, but I'm not sure they're germane to this section. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And-
I agree with you.
And I think, I understand the concern there, and I think it might be, a small blurb might fit as a policy under the historic resource protection. So, a policy that would make the historic resource protection also prospective to maintain that historical feel.
I'm not sure where it belongs. I just want to make sure it's emphasized.
okay.
So I have a question about just the goal. Physical environments, what does that mean? I know natural environment, but natural and physical, usually I use the term built environment. I don't know if it's the same thing, and if that's what it's meaning.
I would guess, I wasn't in the discussions, but I would guess that's what it means, is the,
This is not just what the art commission can do. This is a bigger plan than that. And so enhance the natural and physical environments is basically putting art and making it something people can appreciate and incorporate art into it.
I guess
And that's kind of,
so reading down in the policies when it says like get it into the buildings and the architecture, that's what I kind of think about the built environment. So that's
right.
it's not a big deal, physical or built environment, but just.
Anyone else have either way? They would rather it say built environment than physical environment?
I don't think it matters very
Okay.
much.
we'll look at that.
Anything else on that one? Cultural education, which we talked a little bit about when Jen was here. Promote and support the arts and programming essential to quality education through partnerships with the public and private Issaquah schools, arts organizations, artists, and the community. And this is, again, making sure that we have it at all levels. Are there questions on this one? Oh, okay. This has a bit of a, C2 is, has to do with the past as well. So this has a little bit of the historic piece too, that, to make sure that our art there's an understanding of our past. The next one is cultural facilities. Identify short and long-term arts and culture facility needs and priorities and develop methods to meet the needs. This would be, okay, encourage the development of community accessible studio, workshop, and exhibition spaces for arts, culture, and heritage exhibition. Strengthen incentives for developers and builders to incorporate studio, workshop, and exhibition spaces into mixed-use design. Inventory what we have for cultural facilities. Did you have much of a discussion on this as far as, do we have a lot existing?
No, we don't have a lot. That's why we have to encourage that.
Okay.
All of these organizations come to the Arts Commission and says, where can we put on our festival or our music presentation? And we don't have any place in Issaquah, or very few.
Okay.
So it's an ongoing thing of maybe new buildings can be incorporated where they have a larger space where a symphony can perform.
Okay.
In that vein, Issaquah High School, when it was rebuilt, and they built an auditorium, it was built as a performing arts center, and I don't see it being utilized that way at all. I really would like to see as a goal to employ a full-time executive director to get that place booked for concerts, recitals, and fully utilized. I think it should be utilized every weekend for something. And I think it's a moneymaker for the city. It could be if we attract the right kinds of people. I'm thinking in terms of what Bothell has done, what Kirkland has done. And we have the facility. We have the Performing Arts Center. That's the way it was built. That's the way I was told it was intended, and it's not being used that way.
We try to use it. We do use it for the film festival, and it is in part of the school. It doesn't belong to the city, and the school uses it consistently for their programs, and there's very little time to, it is used all the time. It just happens to be part of the school district. Their plays,
I guess that's not a facility. That's an option.
it's an option, true. But we try. I know that the symphonies go up there and say, hey, can we use it? And there's, you can use it on the 12th Friday of the month of whatever, but then, like last year, we were called and said, you can't have your film festival that day because we have a basketball tournament coming in. And so, it's not an easy place to book for the community.
I realize that, but I'm thinking in terms of the original intent when it was built, the way it was sold to the community was sold as a performing arts center, and it's not being utilized that way.
That's true.
And the other thing I'm thinking of, there are other resources that are underutilized. And again, they're private, they're not public, like Village Theater. There are 5 performances a year, but it's dark a good portion of the year because it's not being utilized. And perhaps that could be utilized in partnership with the Village Theater Foundation or whatever it's called that runs it.
Could that be part of the
And
partnership
these are
goal?
examples. Again, there may be others as well.
And I think, going to that, it may warrant a change to Cultural Policy D2. Right now, it's established an organized network of cultural organizations and available facilities to better match space with needs. And perhaps better wording would be establish partnerships between cultural organizations and available facilities to better match space with needs.
Very good.
Partnerships with or partnerships between? Is there a better?
But partnerships between or among the organizations and the facilities.
Between sometimes only means 2, so maybe among would be
Okay.
better.
Another thought occurs to me, if the Issaquah facility, Issaquah High School facility is not going to be available, maybe we ought to be thinking in terms of develop funding for a true cultural performing arts center as part of Issaquah. That's a long-term goal, I realize that, but it's something that would certainly be attractive to businesses and to residents if we had a true performing arts center.
It has been a goal of the Arts Commission for as long as I have been on the Arts Commission, and that's
Okay,
12 years. And I agree with you. I
I'm
think
emphasizing my
the city
support.
needs something like that.
I think we ought to state it as part of our cultural goal, as well as the arts goal, the Arts Commission goal.
Make that
And Joan, since you know this
a
probably better
policy,
than.
a separate policy under Goldie.
Or does that go back to the economic vitality goal?
It's one of those both, It's like, I think, community events, it's kind of where both.
Facility needs.
It
Make
could
it
go under,
another-
yeah, facilities, that could go under the
Okay.
very one that we're
Make
talking
it
about.
under another sub-policy D4 or D5.
Okay?
So out of curiosity, if it's been on the commission's minds for 12 years, why not?
Money
Money.
and a place to build it.
Money first, and then you get the place, and then you get the money to build it.
Has it been put onto the capital,
No,
no?
no.
Done, the council's doing it.
I mean,
It's covered under Goal D. I mean, it says identify short and long-term needs and try to do that. So that's something that, I mean, you're saying there, but the question is how specific do you want to be? Would that be more in the policy below that to say, work towards that? But, I mean, that concept is
Right.
covered by that goal. And that would be a, a specific thing to do.
Right.
That might come under
Yeah.
implementation rather than just
I mean,
policy.
it's not something I want to put in here, obviously, it's too specific, but I'm just out of curiosity.
Or it could go in the discussion too, that's one, for example, of something that has been identified that you'd be working towards through this element, but it wouldn't actually be laid out in a policy, but it would be in the discussion. That might give it some
Absolutely.
life, because we haven't filled in the discussions yet. So I'm going to put mention performing arts
Okay.
center in the discussion.
I have a 5-year-old daughter that plays the violin, so in like 5 years, she's going to be needing to squeak somewhere else besides my living room.
Good luck with that.
Oh, middle school.
Anything else on this one? Really good discussion. It's really good. Communications and awareness. Provide information about and expand public awareness of Issaquah's arts, culture, and heritage programs and activities and their value to the community.
I would add into that programs, activities, and facilities.
Programs, activities. Okay, good. Anything else on this one? Okay. I've enjoyed, I don't know if you guys have all subscribed to I think it's almost weekly, there's an email that comes from the city that has all the things that are coming, and it has little videos attached to it, and some of those, like the water park day, I just started laughing watching the video of that. I had no idea there were that many kids out there getting, with the fire hose and I thought, wow, I really missed a really good time. So I think that's a really good way of getting folks aware of what's going on in town. Funding, always a big piece of anything that the community is hoping for. Provide a city-managed grant program through the Municipal Arts Fund to support arts and culture programs and events in and for the community. And
So right now, the Arts Commission gets 0.5% of the movie ticket price. So every year, we're able to hand that out to the various organizations.
About how much is that dollar-wise?
Anywhere between $110,000 and $130,000.
And that's just from movie ticket revenues, 0.5%?
Yeah. That was before the new movie theater opened up. That was before we had two. So we're hoping that we are able to support more organizations this year.
And what do you use for when you buy art? What's the funding that you use for that? When you actually get to buy a piece like the council chambers.
Money comes in, and we have our grants. We have to pay our advisor, and then we put away some to be used for sculptures and other big projects in the city, like we're planning to put a new sculpture in some of the roundabouts, and we have new things going in different other places in the city. So we put that money away, and so when we get the money, then we go out and find an artist, and the city, the council has to approve it, and then we get all excited and get to put a new piece into the city.
My only recommended change would be to the policy under that, just says provide municipal funding for activities. I would change that to activities and programs.
Ooh, start again? Are you in E1 or E2? Improve? Wait, I'm in the wrong.
Or F1, sorry.
Provide for programs and activities?
Yeah, for activities and programs or programs and activities.
Okay. And On that a similar note, Joan, when a bigger project comes in, they have to provide some art, like when the interchange went in and those orange.
This,
um,
right, if it's a city
That's a state.
project,
Right,
only if it's a city project.
okay. Because I know on the bridges, on the new bridges, we have the salmon, the bronze, or some other metal then is in the bridge with the date that it was, and I think all the city halls have some kind
Well,
of art in
that
it.
came with,
That came with the bridge funding,
Yeah.
that we had to provide some kind of a art
there's,
part of the.
there's also some art that was put into the, what's it called, where the cars park?
Oh, the park and ride,
The
yeah.
park and ride, but, I mean, we had a hand in picking it, but the money came from building the
Isn't that
The structure
facility.
itself, okay.
Yeah, most transportation funding,
a state thing?
well, and
Yeah.
federal, most transportation funding comes with up to a 1% share can be put into art in a new transportation facility, and that's where the park and rides and those can put artwork in, and that's part of just considered part of the construction funding.
Yeah.
I was just trying to add that we're trying to get art through all the different venues that we can. Some of it through the Arts Commission and some of it's just developers or the city has to provide in their projects.
City provides the funds, but it comes through the Arts Commission, and we usually are part of planning the process of what it is and getting the artists to provide it.
Okay.
Like we did on the side of the new fire station, that orange and yellow thing that's on the side that gets lit up at night. That
Oh,
came
the one-
because of, right,
Oh.
it's on,
Okay. And was that you guys that did they're like irises right by the one in the Highlands?
yeah.
Okay. I think those are fabulous.
That
I
was,
like
that was bought from, yes, we used to have a program where we bring in 10 different sculptures a year and rent them for a year, and we decided it was more economical to actually buy one that everybody liked. And so we
Oh.
stopped that program because we had to pay for the person who did the work, so we are trying to buy more art pieces that the city can appreciate and
Okay.
use
And
and
were
love.
you guys involved in the murals? When they talk about a
No.
mural committee, was that part of the Arts Commission?
That was, that was a long time ago. It was before I was on the Arts Commission, so I don't
Okay.
know. I know we were involved in the rocks that are at the hatchery, the big art,
Oh.
the rocks that had the history of the fish on them.
Mm-hmm.
So that money, a lot of it came from the Arts, in fact, I think all of it came from the Arts Commission.
Okay. I figured while we're on this topic, we should all learn a little bit more of where all of our good art comes from and where hopefully a lot more will come in the future. Because I think you guys have done a really good job.
So you were talking about funding different programs. The $130,000 every year goes to, we've set aside money for every school to apply for a grant so that every school gets some money for their art program. We have the Issaquah Singers, the Sammamish Symphony, all of these people come to us and we provide support for all of them, so. The city does, not us, I mean.
Well, I think that's good to know.
It's fun.
Anything else on this one?
I just want a little more information on that. So the 130, you're saying goes to those things to actually support performing groups and events. Schools get some, and then you're talking about some that goes to sculpture, or some sort of art piece purchase and installation. Is there any, those are like your main areas? Is there anything else?
Well, we support the main stage at Salmon Days. We support the concerts in the green.
Right.
We support half of that. Kiwanis pays for the other half. They raise the money for that. So, I mean, if you look at it, it's like 30 different organizations that are funded through the Arts Commission.
Great to know. Thank you.
That's good to know. And then this is the historic resource protection that, to protect historic resources to enhance the city's quality of life, unique sense of place, and economic vitality. This talks about the treasures that we identified and council adopted or identified the first 30, I think, of a list that was a lot longer than 30, but I think they stopped I think like Harvey Manning was 32 or 33, and they didn't want to have a person on the treasures to protect, because they knew that, you know, in the long run, they weren't going to be able to protect Harvey Manning, rest his soul. So they just approved, they just recognized the first, I think it's 30, and they're in the comp plan as the Issaquah treasures. But that's mentioned in this, and a lot of the other really neat things that we have. And now that you've gone through them all, where would be the proper place for this one? Closer to the top, yes.
If I might suggest, I think the cultural goal, G, historic resource protection, is just as important as our goal A, the cultural vitality. So I would suggest it be at least B,
Okay,
the second section.
anybody
And
go?
they go hand in hand, I think.
Okay, anybody go with Brian on B?
Yeah, I'd concur with that.
Okay, okay, excellent. That was easy.
And I do think, you know, I would like to kind of echo Ray's concern, add a policy under G to include kind of a prospective look as to the historical element in terms of, I know this was addressed in our development portion, but making sure that it's also addressed in the cultural portion, that any new efforts maintain the historic look and feel to the extent appropriate.
I'm not sure where to place it under, but I could visualize us promoting a lot more of what we offer. As a, for instance, we have art all over the city, statuaries and so forth. How about a directory pointing to residents as well as visitors as to where all of this beautiful art is? Maybe an art and.
Funny you should mention that.
Do you have something like that?
The Arts Commission sat down in their retreat, and we came up with our where we wanted to direct a limited amount of time. And one of the things is putting together some videos, which we're going to be putting on Channel 21. We're already started getting the videos put together, so hopefully soon. But it has to be, you know, we want to get everything. So the things that we promote are throughout the year, and so we're trying to get them put together so we can promote them.
thinking more in
Absolutely,
terms-
we have to start using the technology that we have and promote ourselves.
That's absolutely, but even beyond that, many multimedia, many things. A brochure that says, that just describes art in Issaquah, where it's located.
We already have one.
Good, great. That's
We're redoing it, but we already have one because we have new pieces.
And I think what you're talking about, Ray, really fits in as a specific implementation to policy E1, where it does talk about promotion through information technology, through print media. And so that might be a good implementation to
through
add to that.
multimedia,
Yeah.
utilizing all various aspects of media.
Yeah, I can see those being on those weekly emails too, to get them out to people to say, you know, you should see this week, or, you know, when the colors are changing, you know, the ones that are near hiking spots, and that would be really neat to do. And are you working with like someone from the city, like Warren, for the
Warren
videos,
and
and Tim?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Tim's out there taking pictures. You'll see him walking around.
Oh, good.
So hopefully I'll put it together soon.
And actually, going back to cultural goal E, this just hit me. I did some of those historical and cultural tours of Issaquah, and that may warrant updating policy E1 to include educational programs specifically as a method of promotion.
So you'd put that marketing tools such as information technologies, print media, and education, and other cooperative?
Educational programs.
Oh, up in the first part, and, okay.
Anything else?
Nice.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing what pictures
Yeah, the pictures
you guys
are
come up with to
coming,
put
yeah,
in them,
they're
because
coming.
there's some really neat ones that could go in now.
One question I did not ask about the first presentation, how much of that was actually in the original economic vitality plan? Do you know?
pieces and parts of it were, they took out the quote-unquote, which I guess was one of my personal favorites, was the very first goal was quality of life. And we tried to describe it, that it was schools, it was your natural environment, it was your, safe, and, we tried to quantify it because everybody talks about it, but there's no definition. So that was the first goal, was to try to quantify that it's all of these things and they all have to be at a high level. And I think they kind of put it in different places, but they don't actually use it as the defined term that we did before. They don't talk as much about, there's a whole section now about making sure that your development review process is updated annually and make sure that it's consistent with what the applicants are asking for and that you're streamlined. And I think they made that, because we've made so many improvements in our development review process. I think they've even streamlined the goal that we're just supposed to, work with applicants to make sure that, we're working together. And so that part's a lot smaller as well. Those were the biggest pieces that I noticed were, shorter and sweeter than in the existing. I can send out the existing if you wanted to see it. But when we first did track changes, it was just such a mess that it was like, wow, we're not going to be able to read the new one because it was just kind of a
Well, I
mess.
know we changed a lot in the arts plan itself, so I just wondered. I can't remember what we took out, but it wasn't appropriate anymore, but.
Right, you guys have come, because the cultural has never been updated, so this is really an amazing, a good rewrite.
It's fun. Any other comments, or? So what is our next?
You guys are so good at all this. The next, in 2 weeks, you get to see the housing element and the human services element, which they have a lot in common, and yet they have some uniquenesses as well. Arthur Sullivan is going to be here. We were on the phone with him again today, and I said, we have 8 new members, so you're going to get a lot of really great questions. And he said, are they really good members? And I said, they are excellent members. And so he's like, how much will I have to tell him? And we'll say, you're going to have to do the housing 101, but it doesn't have to be the whole depth. I said, because they catch on really quick. So he's excited to meet the 8 new members and to see the reigning veterans. And so we'll have him, and I think one of his assistants, Mike, will be here to help us with that. I think even Kristen might even be here. She hasn't been here in a while. And then Human Services will just be us, and Bill will help us with that because he's on the Human Services Commission. You wear so many hats. It's just wonderful to have you as a resource on PPC. But that's a really good one, too. And we're going to invite the Human Services Commission, but I'm not sure if all of them or many of them or any will be able to attend. But they can certainly watch us. They can watch us on TV and throw popcorn at us if we're not following up. But so those will be 2 really good ones. And then you will have seen, I think, all of the elements, at least in some form or another. And then we'll start coming back and filling in the pieces and parts to get ready for the big public hearing that would start, I think, in October was in our schedule.
So I'm going to ask this one more time.
Okay. Whoops. The TIP is going to be with the transportation element.
I know, but just
and the capital plan.
just the explanation of what it is.
Okay.
And the list, just so the new members can understand before
Okay.
they come to that meeting. So if you
Okay.
could just cut it out, I know it's there,
Okay.
and just kind of send it to everybody so they can, because there were
Okay.
so many questions about where it was and how it was handled and how things are paid for and what the process is.
Okay, because I mentioned to Kristen when we were preparing for this that I was going to do that tonight, and she said, why would you do that with economic vitality and cultural? I said, because Joan asked me to. And she said, it doesn't make
Yeah,
any
see,
sense
that's
this week.
Judge Pro Tem.
When Joan and Carl tell me to do stuff, you better believe it's going to be at the next meeting, but I will send those out.
You are the only one that does that. Yeah, next
very well
time it's all yellow and orange. Yellow or orange. Got
I
it.
think it's perfect.
Maybe I'll do purple.
I think it's perfect.
Now you guys can have challenged me.
Okay, if there is nothing else,
Time for emotion or emotion?
it is 7:31 and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you so much for your.
Job. Good job, everyone. You guys are the awesomest, quote-unquote, new group.
Last one came,
Yeah, I know.